Let's talk about third-party risks, and there is a concept known as vendor management, and this is the process of choosing supply companies and then evaluating the risks inherent in relying on that particular third-party product or service. A few things to keep in mind is that when it comes to risk, as a company, you cannot transfer the entire risk over to the vendor, because even if the vendor suffers a data breach, you as the company, you might be able to claim costs from them, but your company will still be held responsible and liable in terms of legal penalties and damage to reputation. Again, if you read about the Target attack back in 2013, even though the hackers, they attacked Target through a third-party service that was associated with Target still had to pay millions in damages, so keep that in mind. Now, with vendor management, there is a concept known as system integration, and it's basically where you have the company using various components and services from multiple vendors to implement a business workflow. The main issue with system integration is that when you combine services and components from different vendors, you may have compatibility issues, things like that. But the reason why companies tend to go along this route is because it might be cheaper to buy the services and components from different vendors rather than from one single vendor. Now, when a vendor has become deeply embedded within a workflow, the lack of vendor support can become very, very serious, because retooling the workflow with a new vendor can be a long and complex process. So this is one thing that companies need to think about when choosing a vendor. Can we rely on this vendor to provide support for many years to come? And then you also have this concept of outsourced code development, where many companies, especially small to mid-sized companies, they outsource coding tasks to contractors, and they have to rely on those contractors to provide them with secure code. Now, one way to combat third-party developers or contractors providing bad code or weak code or unsecure code is to use another vendor for penetration testing. The idea here is that, okay, you get your code from one company, but don't rely on that code to give you secure code. Instead, hire another company to check that the code that you've been given by the first company is actually secure. Now, data storage. There are two main risks associated with data storage when it comes to using third parties. The first one here is that the vendor may need to be granted access to your data, and the more people have access to your data, the more vulnerable you can become. And then second, the vendor may have to be used to host the data or the data backups. So you can imagine if your company ends up relying on an unreliable third party to host the data or backups, your company can have very serious issues when those backups are actually needed, and that company cannot provide the backups. Now, the following precautions should be taken when it comes to data storage with a third party. First of all, ensure the same protection for data as though it was stored on premises. Monitor and audit third-party access to the data, and of course, evaluate compliance impacts from storing personal data on that third-party system. Let's talk about cloud-based and on-premises risks. So on-premises risk simply refers to the vulnerabilities and third-party issues arising from endpoints located in the company building. Endpoints could be your servers, your workstations, computers, smartphones, and so on. Now, clouds operate a shared responsibility model where the cloud service provider is responsible for the security of the cloud, while the cloud consumer is responsible for security in the cloud. So just keep that in mind. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next class.